Hey, Printavo print hustlers, welcome back to the podcast. Got a really cool episode. Bruce from Printavo here. Stephen Farag out of Campus Ink here. This one's special. Scott, Gunslingin Fresener is here to join us. He's got some incredible stories. What a crazy, hectic 5 years he had growing a business in the DTG space.
I learned so much in this podcast. I did not know that Scott Fresener, and we started riffing on DTF, and he's like, I brought DTG to the United States. And then basically digital squeegee, he sent us a video, Bruce, after the episode of one that he brought 11 years ago and went bankrupt because of it. It was too soon for the industry. So, and his cover band, Pink Floyd cover band. I love these episodes because they're just war stories. So this is going to be a really, really good one to listen to. But before that, let's hear it from our sponsors.
All right. First up, GraphX Source. If you guys need a solution to help improve efficiency and reduce costs in your art department, GraphX Source offers industry-leading outsourcing options to help you do this. I mean, more specifically, they're doing separations, mock-up, creative art, order management, digitizing, some office admin. They've even are helping Steven at Campus Ink build online stores. Use Printavo Pod for 50% off your first vector, sep, or embroidery order. And check them out, graphxsource.com.
Thanks, Nick Wood and the team at GraphX Source. Bruce, think about this. How can you print high color designs, gradients, or hard to print locations and a bunch more? Well, Supacolor has an amazing new guide on how to do all of this using heat transfers. It's got more info like different types of transfers, how to price, and what to even buy for a quality of heat press, which I know you spent the latter half of your last month with a crappy heat press that you bought from
I wish that guide was out supplier.
Before. Yeah. But if you go to supacolor.com/printhustlers or the link in description, guys, if you haven't heard our DTF episode that came out, you'll hear me without saying, buy transfers, buy from Supacolor. They do a fantastic job. Printavo 15, you'll get 15% off your order. Thanks so much, Supacolor.
They have got a very exciting new announcement coming in January. Pretty big thing coming from their end. Wink, wink.
And they only they go ham now. I'm Supacolor. You just keep impressing me.
Multi-craft.
Other big things.
He's at
coming.
512 followers. Multi-craft daddy. Dave Edgars. Yes, multi-craft _daddy. Throw him a follow. Multicraft screen printing and digital supplies for over 50 years have top brands at competitive pricing. They're your supplier, I know, Farag. They are just awesome with customer service, and they're there to help. Make sure to mention Printavo Pod. Get an extra 10% off your first order. That is super generous. Thank you, Dave.
I texted Dave. I go, Dave, I need a Pantone book. I think we dropped ours in an ink bucket. Thing just got sloshed. He's like, how many do you need? And then I'm like, Dave, I need Polyblocker. Yeah, what do you got? And I just, he even made a jot form for us so that we can quickly, exactly what my team needs to order, and it goes right to his email. So he's working on some cool things too that we'll probably start talking about. All of our sponsors are crushing it, but we wouldn't crush it unless we were crushing Reclaim. Easy Way, the easiest way. If you know Alex from Easy Way and his mullet, you know that you shouldn't spend all day cleaning dirty screens. Easy Way's line of environmentally conscious chemicals will get the job done faster, more efficiently, and will cost you a fraction of the cost per screen. We use 701 and 842 at Campus Ink. And yeah, they're freaking great. So hit them up, Easy Way. They are certainly the easiest way. All right, Bruce, ready for the episode?
The easiest way. All right, let's jump on in.
You're going to work on a jingle. All right, let's get it.
So, Scott, Steven dropped an episode from last week, or that we recorded last week, but it dropped actually this morning, about DTF. I'm sure you've seen heat transfers, but more specifically, DTF machines really push into the space pretty heavily into the trade shows. It's already going pretty crazy.
I know Dick about DTF.
I have gotten 3 messages this morning already I got a message at 6 a.m. being like, thank you. I was thinking about buying one, and I'm going to just hold on that.
Well, to me, there's probably the similar issues you had with DTG,
which
maybe I'm wrong,
I think is super cool because that was your world, right?
When I was doing it, everybody had problems with head clogging and blah, blah, blah. They bought a machine thinking they're going to make a lot of money doing T-shirts, and nothing has changed. It's been almost 20 years. And now you go to the DTG forums, and what do you see? People bitching, people selling their machines, people pissed off at a supplier. I'm not in the picture anymore. That's the good news. So Scott Fresener's name never comes up as being the Antichrist.
Okay, this is really relevant. Can you walk us through? So everyone, this is Scott Fresener. If you don't know Scott, Google him. We'll give a little bit more background. But Scott, you've been super instrumental in the industry from an education standpoint, bringing almost like early DTGs. Can we jump into the DTG side, Bruce?
Yeah, and by the way,
ready
Scott's been in this space since, is this correct to say 1979?
Yeah, but I was a printer from 1970. So I actually was a printer. I had one of the bigger shops in the Phoenix area, and
50 years.
I got tired of it, and it's funny, when I sold my shop, most of my contract customers called me, "Well, can you teach us how to do it?" That's how the book evolved, and from the supply side and training side evolved, was customers calling me and saying, "What gear should I buy?" This was the day when I think Hopkins and Richardson were the only presses you could get. So typically you'd buy a Riley Hopkins, and Riley and I became really good friends. But I was a printer for years. I mean, I was running 24-hour shifts.
This is going to be fun. I love when we get to talk to y'all because the war stories and the battle scars. This is like so.
Oh, yeah. I have both.
This might have to be a multi-part episode because I feel like we can go down some rabbit holes. But
I'm ready.
Scott, you have, T-Biz Network. My business partner gave me one of your DVDs when I first started.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah, and he's like, Steve's
a DVD guy.
But yeah, so Scott, can we talk about that DTG real quick? What did you do that was instrumental in the DTG world?
I brought it to the market. People think of me, I think, as being the godfather of DTG, but I didn't invent it, obviously, the inkjet printer. A guy named Mark Mobarn-Kett, I never did get Mark's last name right, from Belkett. Mark and his brother invented and patented a inkjetting on fingernails called Imaginail. And so around 2003, Mark came up to my booth at a show. I didn't know Mark, he didn't know me, and he didn't know the t-shirt business. But he smelled an opportunity. He came up and says, "Hey, what if you could inkjet directly on a shirt? Would you have an interest in partnering with us?" And of course, being Scott Fresener, looking for opportunities, I'm the ultimate serial entrepreneur. Yeah, let's talk. And so Mark was the one that introduced me. And so I'll give Mark the credit for being the guy. And we decided that because Mark at that time didn't have any money, that I would finance the deal.
And when was this, Scott?
2003.
Okay.
Bruce, you were 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, just about.
Back then. So
Nice.
Mark approached me, and being the entrepreneur, I wanted to control everything. Entrepreneurs want to be in charge and want to do it all. So Mark and I made a deal, and he was going to build a machine, a prototype, and I gave him an Epson, 1800, not the R1800, but back then the 1800. I sent him a printer down to Florida. And then months went by, and, Mark's a great guy. He's an engineer, not as good of a marketer, I don't think, but he's an engineer, and he was working on the machine. So we go down to the Tampa show, and I go to Mark's house, and there's this very rudimentary on a coffee table machine printing on, I think, wood. He didn't even have a shirt to print on, and but it looked okay. But in the beginning, I wanted to control the ink sales. I knew that this was no different than Epson wants to sell you a printer for cheap and then sell you ink. And my ink business was, at the end, was $4 or $5 million a year in ink. And so I wanted to control the ink. And Mark said, no, I've been talking to his brother, and they want to handle the ink. End of deal for me. And so I went back home and started online and found a company in Japan called Mastermind, who had a machine that would print on wood and on non-textiles. And sent them a note, and they sent me who their agent was in Los Angeles. 2 weeks later, I had a machine. I spent, I think, $800 air freighting, because the SGIA show now in 2004 was coming up, and I wanted to have a machine there. And I had a machine in August, I think it was, 2004, and we showed our first machine in October of 2004. And so I brought it to the market. That's all I did. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, pretty good technician, and I'm the guy that just said, you know what, there's a market there. And we were at one time buying easily 1,000 machines a year from Mastermind.
Wow.
I went over to visit them twice in Tokyo. They were actually in the whatever city Epson is in. It's outside of Tokyo. Took the bullet train. And They were running 24 hours a day making machines for Scott. We were air freighting them in. We were
How
selling
did
so
you
many.
find them as a company? Oh, did they have a website or,
They were, back then, internet was, you could search, and it was, I think, was it Yahoo back then or not?
Ask
Before
Jeeves.
Yahoo.
it's like
AOL
GeoCities?
9.0?
Yeah.
No, it was who was before Yahoo? Whoever the internet guys was,
Netscape?
Internet Solutions or whatever. Netscape, I think. Anyway, I found them through a web search, and I didn't know who they were. They just had a machine and they didn't know what they had. They sold the machine just to print on flat stock. They didn't know T-shirts. They sent me when they sent me the machine. They had experimented with a ring to hold shirts down, so they had played with it, but they didn't know shirts. So I made a deal with their agent and with them to be the exclusive. They could only sell to me for T-shirt printing. It was for North and South America. So I spent millions with Mastermind. I mean, it was. Those guys were cranking. I mean, I had a warehouse full of machines. We would sometimes be sitting on 100 machines, and we were paying $500 a machine to air freight them in because we couldn't wait to put them on a boat and put them in a container and have them float. We were selling machines.
So you
right
really
left.
you brought it to the world then, because so China wasn't even DTGing on fabric then.
Yeah, they didn't know what T-shirt. I mean, there's people doing roll-to-roll printing on fabric.
Sure.
So the problem was the ink, and I knew a guy named Grant French. Grant French at one time was one of my dealers. He lived in Temecula, California, and Grant sold my RIP, sold my fast films. He went to work for DuPont. I'm online searching, and I find DuPont has an ink called Artistry for their roll-to-roll printing. Worked on fabric, worked 100% cotton. I didn't know Grant even worked for DuPont at that time, but I knew Grant for years. So I contact DuPont. I'm looking for ink for a small format desktop inkjet printer. Will your ink work? And they're coming back, well, it probably will work. We think it'll work. It works on the high performance inkjet heads. Let me get you in touch with our rep, who was Grant French. And so all of a sudden I had a source. And so they sent me some ink to try. They put it in some Epson cartridges. I put it in the printer. This works. I remember it was like, one of those in your life, you have those Nirvana moments. And we were like, wow. And so we washed the shirts. They washed pretty good. They print quality was okay, but it was inkjetting on a shirt. My son Michael says, well, let's print it twice. What do you mean print it twice? Well, let's see if we can print it again. But, the print was magnificent. So now I had an ink source, and so we were selling the hell out of machines, and everybody's going, will it print on a black shirt? We're like, no way. We even tried putting plastisol on an inkjet cartridge. We knew nothing about inkjet printing. We were
So this was only on light colored garments.
only on light colored garments. And we're
There's
screen printers.
no pre-treat. Yeah.
No, that's a different story. I'll tell you that. So we thought if we could just maybe even do sublimation. And by the way, the history is at the SGIA show in October of 2004. I remember these things vividly. Minneapolis, Kornit had their first machine. The big blue, it was like a tank, And we had our little tiny desktop machine. And who do you think's booth was the busiest? Scott Fresener's. Everybody's going $180,000 for that machine for Kornit, and I'm selling mine for $12,000. So they figured they could piss away $12,000, put it on their credit card, and buy a machine. And Kornit was teasing people that they were going to have white ink on a dark shirt. They were showing a sample that I think was fake, and they were going to have it down the road. And by the way, to really give credit where it's due, Matt Rome, who's been around for years, Matt Rome brought a machine out in 1996. That's a long time before me. And he showed it at a show. And he was promising white ink and all this stuff. And the machine was dog meat slow. But Matt Rome really was the one. I'll give Matt and Mark Monbarquette credit for I remember Matt Rome's booth was swamped at 1996. I remember Mark Vasilotone calling me from a Vastex. Is it over? This is after seeing Matt Rome's machine. Is inkjet going to kill screen printing? And I don't think so, Mark. Not quite yet. Because Matt's machine was,
What happened then when you brought it out, right? So like, was this new technology to the space, or were people aware of it and were able to digest it?
No.
Did you have to educate the space? Like, how did that commercialization work?
I had to educate it, and everybody looked at it and went, wow, do I sell my equipment? I even thought I was going to kill screen printing. Had my head up my rear end thinking that, well, this is it. Screen printing's dead. But we had to educate the space, and people looked at it as being nirvana. No color separations, no screens to make, You know, you put a shirt on and print a button. What could go wrong? And so we sold the hell out of machines for white shirts. No head clogging. It's a pigment ink. The heads didn't clog. People loved it. I had one guy that did 50,000 shirts on his little $11,000 machine from Scott Fresener. And so, but we kept going, got to print on a black shirt. You know, how can we do that? I remember vividly in a meeting at DuPont, because I was at DuPont on a regular basis. I was spending so much money with those guys. And I'm going, you need to make white ink. And DuPont's answer was, that'll never happen in your lifetime, Scott. Well, what if it could? And they kind of they came back with, well, what if we could? How big is that space? And everybody in the meeting is going, it'll never happen.
Could you give a little background on why it's incredibly hard to manufacture like white ink through an inkjet printer and like because there's something there that's like special, right? Like what makes that white ink so special?
There's two special things. One is the ink, and one's the pre-treat. The ink has what's called TiO2, which is titanium dioxide. That's a very gritty pigment. And so after DuPont, and I'll answer your question here. After DuPont said, well, we could never make it. A guy in the meeting was a guy named Scott Ellis. He was a chemist and one of their chemists, and he was in this meeting being real quiet. I go home and Scott calls me. You know, I've been thinking about it. He says, you know, because DuPont was the king of white. They sold white paint and to the car industry. They were the kings of TiO2, which makes the white. And Scott says, I think I can make it, but they'll have to pre-treat the shirt. Oh, crap. Screeners will hate it. They will not want to pre-treat. He says, well, you know, can't pre-treat a shirt. It's not going to work. The pre-treat is like a yin-yang to the ink. So it kind of holds the ink off. And if I can pre-treat the shirt, it lays a base down that blocks the shirt and it'll go on the pre-treat. Okay. He says, I'm off the books. They don't want to put any money into this. They don't want to put any money in R&D. He says, but I think I can make something for you to test. And you know me.
That's Scott DuPont.
When can I have it? When can I have it? This is Scott DuPont. And he's on the first patent, Scott Ellis. When can I have it? Well, I'll make some goop. He sent me the stuff and the pre-treat. And we put the pre-treat in a spray bottle, like a little perfume sprayer. We didn't know, you know, spraying down the shirt, put the white ink in the printer, printed. It's gray, but I'm thinking that's a good start. You know, it's not dead white. And so the secret was the pre-treat. I mean, even today, I thought 18 years ago, by now, we would have way more guys doing pre-treated shirts. You got you got, I forget his name. Guys, don't kill me.
Sanmar's got one.
Yeah. So
was pre-treat though big in other industries? Like because how do you think about?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was like in other industries. This is huge, but
it was
not
nothing. It was nothing
yet. Okay,
not in the apparel.
Most fabric is treated. That's digitally, like roll to roll is treated, right? Like.
Yeah. So it was no big deal. So I thought, well, this will be the t-shirt. I know screeners want to keep the steps to a minimum as best they can. They don't know inkjet printers. You know, I didn't know inkjet printers. And so I thought, oh, this will be the killer. No, it wasn't the killer. I vividly remember, I have all these things in my mind. You know how sometimes when somebody calls you and says, hey, so-and-so's died, you remember that in your mind. I remember going to ISS in Fort Worth. In 2006, we went for a year not with no white ink. You know, we were selling the hell out of it. But everybody says, "Can I print on a black shirt?" There was DuPont says you can't show the white ink because we are waiting for the patent application to be approved. Crap!
And what year was that?
Show, 2006.
Okay.
I want to show white ink. And they go, you can't do it, but we think the application will come through and be signed off on. We're at the show at 10 o'clock in the morning on opening day, DuPont, because we're ready to show white. Right. DuPont calls me. Okay, you can show it.
They got it.
We thought, oh man, this is it. This is the brass ring. You know, we didn't realize that at that point, because they warned me the TiO2 will probably clog the head. You know, being the entrepreneur, you don't listen to some of these things. That's okay. I can get over that. Yeah. And so, you know, it'll work it out. Somebody will figure it out. Scott Ellis will figure it out for me. And so we thought this was going to be it. And we sold tons of machines, but the white ink did clog heads. The white ink would settle. The TiO2, the particle would settle in the cartridge and settle in the container. And so if people didn't keep their machine maintained, so we would tell people, as they do now, you have to maintain the machine. You got to clean the head. You got to, at night, cap it, whatever. We did all that. Nobody listened. It was, as you guys know from going to shows, it was mom and pop going, holy crap, Mom, this is going to be great. We can start a little part-time business, and they're working day jobs, and the machine would sit for a week. And so that was our customer, even though we warned them in advance, put it in the manual, bold print. People didn't want to do it.
So did you sell to hobbyists? Did you sell to hobbyists and then it rolled into commercial? Was it like hobbyists first, do you think?
No, it was both. There was the screeners who thought, oh, this is going to be it. I'll piss away $11,000 or $15,000 then, and I'll buy one of these machines and try it. And I still get people today that say, Scott, I bought one of your machines back then and I love it. And I got people that I posted something last week on one of my websites, and somebody posts to F off. I know that was the guy that bought a DTG machine. Really? I mean, there's people out there that 18 years later think I'm the Antichrist, that I took their money and I screwed them and ripped them off. And we were taking a desktop printer that was kind of not a toy, but not like what we have now, and making it work as a commercial printer, and that was probably a mistake.
So what issues? So on the podcast that we just put out yesterday, we talked about support for it. We talked about the distributors not really they're still figuring it out as they go. It might not be ready for the industry yet. What kind of early problems did you have in your first couple of years? Like, were there any we have a recall on this entire batch of ink, or like?
We had that. Yeah, we had that. A company called Roman Haas, I think they're still in business, big ink company. They approached me that they could make ink and maybe a little less than DuPont, and I didn't want to be totally married to DuPont because DuPont gave me on the white I wanted an exclusive. I'm the guy that brought him to the market. They gave me a 6-month market edge, they called it, meaning I had an exclusive for 6 months, and I knew that would dry up. So Roman Haas approached me. They showed me some white. It looked great. We bought it. We shipped a ton of it, and next thing you know, heads are clogging everywhere. We replaced probably 1,000 print heads on our own dime.
Wow.
And so the problem, again, was a screener, I think, is mechanical, a screen printer. He knows how to make a screen, and he can print. And printing is pretty mechanical, I think. You follow some rules and you get it tight, and it's to teach in my class that if you're going to fail, it's going to be because you can't run business. It'd be the marketing. It's not going to be because you can't print a shirt. And so our customer was someone who wasn't into inkjet printing. Even now, if your inkjet printer doesn't print, what do? You kind of freak out. You do a head cleaning on your desktop printer. You aren't inkjet guys. You don't know how to take the printer apart. And we're telling people, well, you got to replace the print head. And they're going, what? And you got to take the head out. You got to take the machine apart, take off all these parts. They don't want to do that. That's why today, even with the DTF, it's no different. A lot of these machines are still desktop printers that people in China and Japan are modifying and using, even today, look at Omnijet and all those guys, FreeJet, all those guys are still taking off the shelf inkjet printers and repurposing them,
Those first 3 years or so, you doing this and being the first one to market, it sounds like, and educating the space. That's a lot, right? And I think there's principles out there that say, or strategies, it's like, you do not want to be the first one because educating is so expensive and costly. Was the business, do you remember if the business was profitable, though, being the first mover? Because then you could also be the first mover and have the biggest brand because you're the de facto, but...
It was profitable because of the ink sales. It's no different than the Epson theory. We ended up DuPont licensed us for the pretreatment. By the way, the pretreatment we discovered after we got our license. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they sell it for now, $30 or $40 a gallon. I haven't looked at prices. We could make it for $1.50 a gallon. It's no different than drugs or whatever, where the hard costs are so small. It's the marketing costs that are so big. So we were making 55-gallon drums of pre-treat and paying DuPont a few bucks per gallon on a license. So the ink was the big deal. And in the beginning, when we were selling non-white printers, we were making a lot of money. We went from being small $500,000 a year company selling fast films, and then I developed the RIP. The RIP was kind of our cash cow because we were selling the film, and I was the first to really be the one to bring RIPs to the market. I like to say I've been the first to my whole life, and so we were the first to do that, and that's helped us finance the DTG business. I eventually turned my back slowly on the RIP business because I was so into DTG, and that was a mistake. I got behind with my suppliers on the film because I was putting all the money in DTG. But we went from being $500,000 company to $1 million company to like a $5 million company the next year.
In what time? In the next year?
The next year to being an $11 million company, and then in 2006, we were Inc. magazine's 512. I didn't make the 500. We were the 512th fastest growing company, and we were their 12th, believe it or not, 12th in the U.S. fastest growing manufacturer in 2006. Wow. And we were doing in 2006 we did $21 million in sales.
Wow. Oh my gosh! Oh, and wait, what was the split in that revenue? Do you remember?
Between RIP and RIP?
Oh, probably 15 million in T-jets, and the rest of it was fast films and film and RIPs and stuff. We were on a roll. Now, we all know that in this industry in the last few years, there's been other guys like Scott who have grown real fast, and I've always warned these guys because I've been there. I says, you be careful of your growth. I always tell people you make a decision today when you're growing fast that you think is absolutely the right decision. And a year later, you're going, what the hell was I thinking? And so there's some guys now that have taken a fall that are humbled. Can't name names, but I've warned them, I've been there. You just think you can kill. You're just on a roll. I'm very honest about it. I made mistakes. Mistakes were made is always what I tell people.
So what kind of happened to the business? Because when I got into the space, it was like Brother and Epson, right? Like those were basically the two. Where did you, was it a matter of like Epson just started really engineering on it? And like, how did that happen?
No. At that show I told you about, Minneapolis, SGIA, it was Corneden and me. But a friend of mine who was a printer happened to be very close with Brother, and he had already told me Brother was in beta. Brother didn't have a machine there, but they were beta testing. And he had a non-compete, this guy, but he told me everything that Brother was doing. And it was just nice to know, and I wasn't so worried because I'm Scott Fresener. I'm well known in the t-shirt business. Nobody knows Brother. They think of Brother for being there, maybe a embroidery machine or something. And so I wasn't worried about Brother. And DuPont was selling me ink, and I didn't worry about Epson. I was buying almost tractor trailers full of Epson printers. We would rip them apart for the engine. I wasn't worried about that. But then Brother came out, and Brother had a very solid model, no white ink. I mean, they would hammer us at shows, you can't print white. And we go, well, what do you think of this shirt? We'd show up a shirt with a black shirt with white print. But Brother would tell people, it's not ready for the market. And so Brother had a nice business model that was just, old, established. We're gonna wait till it's right for the market. And my mistake was I'm at DuPont one day, and they had a big roll-to-roll machine called the I want to say the Artistry. That was the ink. But it was a roll-to-roll. It had 16 industrial printheads.
It's a lot of printheads.
Two rails. And if I don't know if when you edit this thing, I have a video of that it's a thing of beauty. This thing is going printing 4 shirts at a time, and shirts are just coming off this machine. And my machine had heat presses if you watch what's going on now, it had heat presses to smash the fibers down. We were working on inline pre-treating. It was going to be the thing. The market wasn't ready for it. White ink was still selling back then for $300 a liter, and I misjudged it. I thought, well, the average large guy is going to go, well, I'll make it up the cost of the ink in no separations, no screens, minimal pre-press. That'll offset the high cost of ink. Totally wrong. The large contract printers. I had one of those machines, a DuPont machine that sold for $300,000. I had one of them in Cafe Press. I had one of them in Fortune Fashion. I had, I think, 2 or 3 others in big companies.
Cafe Press.
Cafe Press. Go figure that.
That's early print on demand.
Are they still around? I don't know.
I don't know. That's
But,
Their website's live, but yeah, who knows?
I know. But they were the guys. You know, if you
Yeah.
think back, those were the guys. But I had machines in all those places because they thought, wow, this is it. They hated it. They were not inkjet guys. You know, they didn't want to have to build a hood around the machine to keep the humidity level up. You know, the machines are out in the screen print shop. They're right next to a dryer, and it's dry out there. And so that was a mistake. I spent millions. I took that machine to, I think, 5 shows at a cost of probably 2 or 3, maybe $20,000 per show just to get the machine there and get it hooked up and the freight. Nobody wanted it. It was too soon. Now you go to the show, what do you see? You see digital squeegee, all the things that we wanted to do, but digital squeegee has the right idea that you're going to screen print the white underbase. Well, Plastisol's cheap or whatever, you know. And now you've got other guys that are showing inkjetting the white ink. Well, inkjet, the white ink's still expensive, but so I screwed up. What I say earlier, mistakes were made. Because I really misjudged the market. I thought.
I mean, there's a chase there. Yeah, you were chasing it, right? Like
I was, and I was always afraid somebody behind me. You know, like Epson was. You know, when Epson, I heard from Epson they were going to bring out their own machine. I'm like, what the hell? So that shocked me. And then Brother came out with white ink, and it was a fun ride. And I made a lot of money, but I lost a lot of money. And at the end of the day, we ran out of money.
When was
the bank
that?
called the bank in 2008.
Oh my gosh! So wait, because this whole story was 2003
It's
to
like a
2008.
5-year sprint.
Yeah. This
It was
is
quick.
like
Boom,
a
boom,
lifetime
boom.
worth of stories in 5
know
years.
it.
this could be a screen printing Netflix docu-series. These stories are like we were listening to
Behind
Mark.
the
We were
curtain.
talking about printing for Apple, and this is just like this is awesome.
I know.
This is,
It's,
behind,
it was a
behind
fun
the
ride.
ink.
Wait, so all right, so 08 comes, what, 20 million or so plus.
Hold your thought though, before you, because you had mentioned that even today in your podcast yesterday, talking about dealers not being ready and stuff like that. We had the same issues, but here, look, we're 18 years later, and the same issues are going on, where the dealers don't know dick about inkjetting. They're selling machines to people that shouldn't buy them, I'm sure for DTF. And so I'm sitting back with DTF going, well, this is deja vu.
Yeah, pipe.
Anyway, so I'm sorry, Bruce, I didn't mean to cut you off. But,
No, it's good. So like you talk about you ran out of cash. What do you mean?
Well, we were spending so much money on the big machine. We called it our T-Jet Pro or whatever, taking it to shows and working on it and shipping to people like Cafe Press, which I put the machine in on consignment just to see if they'd like it. Zazzle bought a machine. I go to Zazzle, and Zazzle had a machine there, and we were selling Zazzle. Oh, I think we sold Zazzle 1 year. 1 year. It's like a lifetime. This 4 or 5 years. But I think in 2007, Zazzle's probably spent $1.5 million with me on ink, just ink alone. But we were just pissing away money, trying to get the big machine going because we thought it was going to be Nirvana, again, the brass ring. And then sales were declining because Brother was eating into us a little bit. There was bad karma. People thought Scott Fresener was the Antichrist because they bought a machine from me, 2 years ago, and now it's a boat anchor. And so there's a little bit of blowback in the industry. And we had a 25,000 square foot building. We had infrastructure. We had 90 employees at one time. I like to joke, and everybody, we had rent. We had overhead. People see that you paid whatever for a drug, $100 for a little bottle of pills. Yes, but there's marketing involved. There's salesmen involved. As you guys know, and so slowly we started getting tight for money, and the bank called the line of credit, and it was
because it was around 08 as well when they were all a little.
No, they wanted their money. We had a line of credit to because sometimes you get.
But with the housing
slow
crisis
months.
too, it sounds like the timing was off.
If you remember 2008, we were getting really in a cash crunch early in 2008, and as the year went on, and if you recall, in October of 2008, the entire economy crashed. That's when the Lehman guys are jumping out of windows, and the election, Obama's coming into a total housing crisis, and you couldn't borrow money. Nobody was loaning any money after October of 2008. It was a total cluster F. And so we started getting tight for money, and we started to look around that maybe we would sell it. Now, in fairness, and I don't think this is, I don't think I have an NDA on this. I've talked to people about it. A year earlier, Stahls was going to buy us. And I've known Ted Stahl for years. I mean, I've been in this business so long, I know all these guys. And one day his CEO walked in my door because his daughter was going to Arizona State University or whatever, and says, we're looking for acquisitions. People don't know Stahls owns a lot of companies. Those guys have, there's a lot of companies that people aren't quite aware that Stahls is the one that owns them. And so they come in, are you guys for sale? Sure, why not? We come up with a number, and in the 9 months of due diligence, we got, I wouldn't say we got jacked around because, again, Ted's a good friend, and I'm not banging on him, but they were doing their homework. In the 9 months, we lost the exclusive with DuPont because the time ran out on the white ink. We lost our vendor, Mastermind, because Mastermind had a deal with me to be the exclusive for T-shirts in North and South America. And next thing I know, Mastermind is selling through a guy in Australia to Cole Desi, Scott Coleman, in Florida. And I'm not banging on Scott. He's a nice guy. So I'm just saying that this is how it evolved. And we go to a show and what is it? There's a machine just like ours. What? That's our machine. It's a Mastermind. You could tell. You could smell it. Oh, yeah, we're buying it from a guy in Australia. So Mastermind comes over, and this is probably one of the rudest things I've ever done. I shouldn't tell this story, but Mastermind, the Japanese, very, very, let's have a bow. Here's your gift. They give us a gift, and I told them to F off. I didn't take the gift, and that would be a total insult to a Japanese person. And we said, you guys effed us, and we're not going to buy from you. That was the number one thing that was our downfall. Was I told my vendor to F off. And we started to make our own machine locally in Phoenix, and it was a piece of crap. So we were taking machines back, running out of money with the big machine, taking it to shows. And, so we're trying to sell. And then Stahls goes at the last. We're at the signing table with Stahls, by the way. After 9 months, we are at the attorney's offices. Everyone's there. And Stahls is going, we're getting nervous. You don't really own any IP. You don't own the machine. You're having somebody make it. You don't own the Epson engine. You don't have the white ink. We're going to pass. We told them, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Being arrogant.
There was what do you call it? Like the guy in the Wild West movies with the walking around with the two guns and the.
But that is some of the most nerve-wracking months, right? That's your livelihood. Like Bruce, you guys were in due diligence. That's. I remember you burning midnight oil.
It's so much.
Listen, the Stahls deal was so firm. We thought they bought the building next to my building. And we put $100,000 down on a building that was next to that because it was going to be Stahls was going to bring in and do heat press. Now, Stahls has a warehouse now in Phoenix. And again, I'm not banging on Stahls. They were smart. I look back and go, Ted Stahl would have been a couple years later going, can I get the money back? So I give him kudos for that. But we had put $100,000, which we lost, by the way, because we didn't get the deposit back. Stahls bailed on the building that they had put money down on the building next to us. So we thought in our mind, this is a done deal. We're going to ride off into the sunset with our $15 million that we were going to sell the company for. And everybody's going to make money. The kids will make money. Life will be great.
Was this in 08 as well? Or is it the end of 07?
This was late 07.
Okay.
Wow.
So because of that, I don't know how you know, but
this is all coming to a head. It's like there's so many factors here that are playing at the same time. Stalls, vendors.
Is this the first time this story's recorded? I feel like this is I'm just sitting taking this all in.
I've told it on different parts of it to different. I did the shirt show with I can't remember their names. I forget.
Shots out. Yeah,
we don't really like them either. Yeah.
I don't know. No, I don't say it. Anyway, I've told. At my age. I turned 75 2 months ago. I figured, and I can still rock and roll. We're going to talk about that too for sure. We have to talk about rock and roll a little bit. But so we're getting tight for money, and we had all these employees, and sales were declining, and then the economy was kind of slowly crashing. Middle of 2008, things aren't great, but it hasn't totally been D-Day, and so I hear that a company called Hirsch. Had money in the bank. and we're looking for an acquisition. And I heard that from my wife's cousin, Dan Axelson, who worked for Workhorse, and that's a whole other story. Some of these guys would not be in business if it wasn't for me.
Your wife's cousin worked for Workhorse?
Yeah, well, Dan worked. Yeah, he worked for us for years, and then I brought them to the party.
Okay. Got it.
I brought Workhorse. Okay. I mean, those guys, they were just a machine shop. So I call up Hirsch. And I get a hold of a guy named Paul Gallagher. Paul's still at the shows. We don't talk, but and we were getting desperate. The bank called our line of credit, and the bank lady, who was really not a nice lady, she comes over to we have a 25,000 square foot building with all the manufacturing. She brings over an auctioneer. That freaked me out. An auctioneer, what he's looking at a nickel on the dollar, a nickel, a dime on the dollar. What can I get to liquidate these guys?
And when they call your credit, how long do you have to pay it back?
Is that a personal question? No, I'm just kidding. No, a week or two, because you either need to make it right. Yeah,
I thought it would have been 30, 60, 90. I mean,
I forget. It may have been 30 days, but it wasn't long, and we knew that it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. We couldn't cure it, and so. The banks, we were with the bank for years, and we were. I always thought we were not a huge company, even when we were doing 21 million, but we were. The banks would come over, they'd wine us and dine us. Do
you remember how much that line was for?
It wasn't a lot, $1.5 million. I mean, in the grand scheme, it wasn't. I look back and go, yeah, you write a check, but I couldn't. So the bank comes and they, this was a real hard ass. She was probably in the liquidation department or something, and so. She comes over and with the auctioneer, and then she starts pressing. And so we tell Hirsch, we got to do a deal, And Hirsch is going, well, we'll give you, don't laugh at this now. We'll give you $10,000. What a small amount of money for 80%. But our problem was we had a lot of customers then that had deposits on machines, and we don't want to screw anybody. Vendors get screwed at times. It's not I hate to say it, but it happens. But a customer who sends you money, mom and pop, and prepays for a machine, we probably had 50 orders in house, And so Hirsch goes, but we'll put in $2 million in your company. Well, that was music to my ears. It would give us cash flow. We'll deal with the bank. Hirsch was a very aggressive, their bookkeeper, very aggressive. Can I say pushy? Lady from New Jersey who was just in your face, we're going to make a deal. She tells the bank, we're going to make a deal. We'll buy the note, but it's only going to be for, $500,000, or these guys are going to go. And so the bank said, okay. And so they bought the bank note, and they bought 80% of the company. But the plan was to then grow the company and flip it. So Scott and Pat Fresener, in a couple of years, would have a $50 million company that we would sell. It sounded good on paper, and the customers would get their machine shipped. And then what happened was in October we did the deal in August 2008. In October, the economy crashed. Hirsch was a publicly traded company. It was like on the penny stock market. I think their stock was a quarter or whatever. And so the economy crashed. They had put money in, though, and we were able to ship machines. They treated us like a stepchild. They were also a Mamaki dealer. Mamaki was trying to sell a machine for printing on shirts. They were a Cornette dealer. And so they put money in, but slowly it just eroded. Where sales were down, they quit putting money in, and you couldn't borrow money. I'm sure
their valuation tanked, and
it did. Oh yeah, they were down to a nickel. I used to call Paul and say, "Look, at your stock's down to a nickel today." Yeah, I know. I don't even look at that.
Yeah.
But it became nobody could borrow money. I mean, our customers many times would lease a machine. You couldn't get a lease, and maybe you weren't doing your businesses then, but back in October, November, December, January of 2008, 2009, nobody could borrow money. And so our sales went from some months of $2 million a month down to $100,000. Well, I got 90 employees, I got payroll, I got rent. And so it just slowly evolved to where there was no money. And in April, I vividly remember this, of course, because Hirsch decided to liquidate. Now, the inside story, which I don't think I've ever told anybody, maybe I have, Scott and Pat Fresener owned the building. We owned the building. We kept the building. That was part of the deal. We were the landlord.
Always on the dirt. Always on the dirt.
We were the landlord. And the rent was $16,000 a month. And because it was $25,000 on 2.5 acres in an industrial park. And we're thinking, and they're not paying the rent. My company, I'm the CEO still, but my wife is no longer involved. And we're not paying the rent to my wife, Scott and Pat Fresener, the landlords. And there was a couple months rent due. And we're telling Hirsch, we need more money. You own 80%. You have controlling interest in this company. You need to pony up and pay the rent, And they didn't. So we locked our own company out.
You evicted them, huh?
Okay, F you. So we locked the doors. Told the employees, it's a lockout. There's no work today. And we were so smart back then, What we failed to realize and remember that Hirsch had a UCC filing on all the assets. We kind of forgot about that.
What is that?
It means that they have a filing with the state of Arizona that they own what's in that building. It's called a Universal Commercial Code or whatever. And Hirsch is going, wait a minute. You can lock us out, but we own what's in the building. And that's when a guy named Robert Barnes showed up before your time.
In a suit and tie?
No, he showed up and moving vans showed up and they cleaned the building out. So I'm thinking, I own a building. I can rent this thing, even though the economy sucked. I own a 25,000 square foot building. And that was always the plan. We'll evict Hirsch, whatever. And a week after they cleaned it out, somebody stole all the copper out of the building.
Oh, no. The electric
gone. This was a big building that had 440 volts, big hunking, huge, because it was a manufacturing plant before I bought the building, and I had let the insurance go as far as the contents because there was no contents, empty building. I had insurance on. I didn't have insurance on theft. Now, to me, selling the copper was vandalism, but the insurance company said no.
How much copper was in there dollar-wise? I'm just curious.
There was an older building, and so it was some of it was grandfathered in. I got a quote; it was going to be $500,000 to bring the building back up to code and rewire the entire building. I mean, these guys went in one night, and I don't know if in your area if that was a big business. I think it still is. But these guys would come in. Yeah, right.
Was it the Hirsch Mafia?
Yeah. Well. You never know. Hey, we know a guy, All of a sudden, I'm with a building that has no copper, no power. They took all the copper even out of the power box, the breaker boxes. They took it. They did it. And that was a big deal back then. And I could see they had chop saws at night from the roof. A lot of the lines went across the roof. They just chopped it, a big deal. And so I tell the bank, I can't rent this thing. I didn't make a payment for a year. And the bank would be calling. But at that time, bank guys were churning because of the economy and nobody could borrow money. Housing market crashed. Bankers were taking back buildings and stuff right and left. We were just one more guys that had a building that we couldn't make a payment on. And so after about a year, and the banks keep threatening me, somebody that had a nonprofit company made the bank an offer of like $900,000. That building was appraised before this whole thing happened at about $4 million. I paid about $1.5 million for it. So that was going to be my cash cow. I'll sell it if I have to. No copper, you can't sell it. And so the bank sold it to a nonprofit, and I had a personal guarantee on the note. And I'm going, I'm screwed. They're going to come after me. And the bank let me off the personal guarantee. I have no idea why. To this day, I don't know why the bank let me off, other than they felt sorry for me. So I went from having when we locked the company out, I went to working from home, and
wow.
Had to deal with some taxes and some other issues. So whatever money I had kind of got eaten up, And then a couple irate customers that had T-jets that had money on them that I told them, call Hirsch. They own 80% of the building, of the company. You call them. And so we had a kind of a falling out. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's a long way around.
Okay.
But that was the rise and fall. And that's why like I said, there's a couple guys in this industry who grew real fast after that, because we were the king of the inkjet film. We were selling millions in inkjet film. As I told you, we were the guys. We had a whole department selling inkjet. We had cartridges for the 4800, the 4880 inkjet, the black ink, for film output. We were selling rips right and left, and so it was a sad story. So I started working from home, and I kind of missed all that. How you have it when the employees want to bang on your door. Where do you want the rocks? And you tell them in the rock pile. I kind of missed that whole camaraderie of employees. And so I've been working from home now ever since then. I have a little office in my house. I sell my fast films now as TSEPs. I still sell it. I do separations every day. I mean, I kind of lost my savings, lost my my cash cow, and so I do SEPs every day. I'm active, but nobody sees me. I quit making videos. I got tired of that. I probably got older, so I decided not to see myself on camera anymore. But then I formed a band.
Did you start selling the videos? Did you sell the videos and the DVDs after that, or was that all simultaneous?
I did.
Doing that all
that
at the
was
same
still.
time?
It wasn't pre-YouTube, but it was still. People were still buying DVDs. I mean, even in the heyday, we would sell. I bet we'd sell $600,000 or $700,000 in DVDs a year. Not compared to the TJet, it was nothing, but it was still a cash cow for us, the DVDs. But then it became. Now today, like I couldn't give away a DVD now. I quit selling them a few years ago because nobody buys DVDs. Even my book, How to Print T-shirts,
Sure.
which was my other, not a cash cow, but it was kept my name out there. I quit publishing it 4 years ago because to publish a book like that, it costs about $6 to print it, but you got to buy 5,000 books, to get that price. In the heyday, it was nothing. It was nothing. Write the check for $30,000 to the printer when we had money. But now, and Amazon was selling. I was going through the guys at Screenprinting magazine were selling it to Amazon for me. They were doing $2,000 or $3,000 a year, and then it dropped down to $1,000 a year, and then it dropped down to $500 a year, and so. It's now an ebook. There's just people don't. I like a book, by the way. I'm very old school. I like to look at a book, but people now they want to go to YouTube and look on their phone and all that.
So you have a lot of these points that are things that maybe you stumbled on, but I feel like you have a lot of successes, especially in just this story. And this is only like a 5-year segment out of your 50 years of being in the space that we're focusing on. But like, what were some of the big points? And Farag and I talk a ton about pivotal moments or things that like really shift the trajectory of the business. What would you say are some of those success aspects that you guys hit or you did really well?
Probably Fast Films, my separation software. We did classes for years. We started doing classes in 1979 because my first trade show was an ISS show, and I was always that kind of geeky kid. I did a magic act, and I was in a band. I'm in a band again, as you probably know. But I was never afraid to talk to people, but I have definitely my shy side. And when Impressions came out, we had just written our book, my wife and myself, 1978. Impressions came out, Bill Windsor, first trade show. We sent them a news release because they had Impressions magazine then, first issue. And they called, would you come and speak at the show? We fly to Dallas on a red eye. We haven't traveled much, didn't have any money. And we show up at their show, and there's 500 people in the room. Because I was a rock and roller, and I played at one of the hot teen clubs before when I was first married. I had no problem getting up in front of people and talking, and so but it was 500 people. So I remember my wife and I after I did like a 3-hour seminar, we're like going, "This is good. We could do videos. we could promote the book. We could speak at shows." That was probably. What really got me going was that education was where people were dying to know, because at that point there were no books or anything. Yeah. And so, but it's all about just the marketing,
I think what's interesting is like you had some interesting things when I look at this story, like the TJet itself that just sold on white shirts worked perfectly, pushed the envelope a little bit and then kept pushing it. It's like, have you ever thought like, what if I just sold really good white printer DTGs that don't print white ink, like they only print on whites, or like just TSEPs, is that not?
Yes.
Like I look at that, I'm like,
yeah, but this was the early 2000s, Scott Fresener.
Well, but
that's what I was going to tell you to F off if you cross his path.
That's where a serial entrepreneur screws up. a serial entrepreneur can't let it lie. I think back to we were doing, like I said, $4 or $5 million in film and rips, clean business, no complaints, no bitches, and I let that market dry up because I got so tight for money. I got cut off by my film supplier, and then guys like Ryan Ed, who were my dealers back then, they're picking up the pieces from Scott Fresener as he's slowly crashing and burning. Because a serial entrepreneur, that's why if anybody watching this wants some advice, if you're a serial entrepreneur, you're right. I should have stuck selling film and selling supplies. It was a clean business and it was a profitable business. I couldn't let it lie. It's just that you said it. That next saying. What if we could do this?
I think like I deal with that quite a bit, and it's like we're pushing the envelope. Ooh, we're bringing in DTF. Ooh, we need to get this. Ooh, we're gonna try doing this now. It's really hard to say no.
It's
and
a disease.
Say like, what if I just do I just do a really good job at this and nothing else?
Yeah,
and it's really hard to do. Like Bruce, we talked about
hard.
like if we were to develop an app or something, it's like pick one tiny thing and only do that and don't do anything else, right?
No, you can't turn it off. I think, So I mean, look at the film business. There was nobody selling rips. Everybody was doing back in 2000. There was nobody doing. It was all doing vellum off of a laser printer or doing cameras. People still had cameras back. I used to teach cameras in my workshops, and I go to a show and a guy named Jeff Baxter shows me a film off an inkjet printer, and I'm going, wow, that's like a camera shot. Nobody was selling it. And so I ran into Catalink. I found those guys on a web search, and I tell them, I think I can sell your product called PhotoScript, which they had a little rip that they had bought from a guy named Dave Evans in the UK. And it was designed to do ink shedding, color matching and stuff, but it did halftone dots. And I tried their PhotoScript. I said, send me a copy. I say to these guys, I think I can sell this. I've told this story. I know I'm rambling, but I remember going to my wife who handled the money and saying, I need to buy an Epson 3000 printer so I can test this thing called a RIP. I think I can sell a few of them, but I need $1,200 to buy this Epson 3000. And that was a lot of money back then. That's when we were in the 500,000 range, per year, only a couple of employees.
Were you a software developer or were you building
Not at
this?
all. I'm just an entrepreneur.
Just repurposing Catalink?
Repurposing it, yeah. So I get this rip from Catalink, and the Epson 3000 printed real dense black. It had the best black in the world, and it does halftone dots. And Catalink's going, well, we don't know what a halftone dot is. We're inkjet guys. We sell to the guys that do color printing. I said, I want to buy this rip from you, but I want the exclusive worldwide because I can sell a few of these. And sure, So I was buying the rip for $150 from Catalink, selling it for $500. And I ran across a company that made the film, and I was buying film by the boxes and selling film. And I go, well, I want to buy bigger quantities. Well, you got to buy what's called a jumbo roll. A jumbo roll was like 60 inches by, 100,000 feet or something. Big roll of film. You got to buy that. I found a guy called a converter who would convert it and chop it up and put it in boxes for me. But I was the first guy to bring that to the market. I mean, there were other rips out there, Wasatch and stuff, but I was the first guy that really took it to T-shirt printers and said, "Here's your solution for your laser printer from Zonte." That I helped them sell thousands.
Scott, I have 2 Zonte screenwriters.
You have a
My business partner will not let me throw them away because he's like, he goes, they do not make those anymore. And
they
God
were $3,000. I know.
He goes, God forbid. He goes, he used to buy parts because he loved them so much. That's really funny.
Oh, people would buy 3 or 4 of them off eBay or whatever for the parts.
Yeah, eBay, totally.
Yeah. So when I first saw the first Zonte, because I'm again entrepreneur. When I first saw my first Zonte, I'm telling those guys, I can sell that. You need to send me one so I can have it in my school. And I'd show it in my classes, and I know people would go home and half the class would buy a Zonte, but it was $2,000 or $3,000. So I was able to show people that for $1,000 printer back then, like an Epson 3000, and a RIP, you're going to get camera quality, really dense black. And so I should have stuck with that. That would have been the perfect deal. But I was the first to really bring an affordable RIP. But you asked me what was the turning point. A guy named Charlie Fassini, who owns AccuRib Separation Studio, a piece of work. How's that? Huh? You can edit that out if you want. But
Charlie, you're probably not listening to this, but if you are, you can hop on the pod.
Yeah, he brought out. But he brought out a
Studio,
software
maybe?
for separation. No, it was before that. Spot Process. He brought that out, and it was $15,000. And I'm thinking, the average screener is not going to spend that. He priced it based on how embroidery software was back then. Maybe it's since I don't know embroidery. Maybe software for embroidery is the same now, but back then it was really expensive.
Wings modular, yeah.
Yeah, so he priced it like that, and I met him at a show, and he said, "I don't want to sell to the small guys, you know." And I've been teaching separations in the camera and the computer for years, and there were so many things I did the same time over and over. I did the same routine over and over again. Here's how I make an underbase, da 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 underbase, and so I looked at this program, $15,000. I thought, well, hell, I could do that in Photoshop. I could just record actions, you know, my mouse steps. Came out with fast films for $1,500 and sold 1,000 of them my first year. And where Charlie didn't want to sell to the small guys, but he's, you know, trying to sell $15,000
But he
software.
sold
And
one
Scott,
at 15.
yeah, well, probably so. I know. What's that? All I got to sell is one. So I sold whatever $1 million worth of software my first year in fast films, and that was a defining moment because that gave me real cash, and that was a gravy train to then do other things. And
Yeah,
so fast
if
films
you can
was,
sell
you know,
things that don't have if you can sell things that don't have a physical product, the margins on them are much better.
Oh yeah, I love it. Like you know,
well,
even
I
though then we sold CDs for fast films back then, but now everything's downloadable. So there's nothing. I have no real cost for the product. You know, well, Bruce knows about that stuff.
Do you think it's better to be the first mover in the space or somebody like the second or third and follow on to like iterate on something?
I hated
it
to
seems
be
like
the
there's so
second or
much
third.
that you had to figure.
I know.
So it's more of like you love that. You love that first, you know, mover advantage.
I do. I think it's my
You
ego.
love to do the innovation. You know, all
Yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah. Even now, you know, I told you we're going to
'Cause I
talk
always
about
loved
bands. You know, I like to be the first, but if I look back, you know, I look back and think, was it right to be the first? You know, because look where it got me. You know, I mean, so. But I have this Pink Floyd band. I'm gonna talk about my band real quick. Just you know, I got a band.
Go for it. Oh, Shine on Floyd.
We have the
out.
best.
Shouts out
We
Shine
have
on
the
Floyd.
yeah. Go to shineonfloyd.com. We have the best. I have the best Pink Floyd tribute band in probably the U.S. Believe it or not, because I'm Scott Fresener and I want
Our
to have the
CFO is
best.
going to love this. I'm going to send it to him.
You know, and we are playing large performing arts centers. We're doing a tour of Nashville and Memphis this summer. We are the real deal. And if you like Pink Floyd, just check us out, shineonfloyd.com. But the point is,
Are you going to be in Chicago, Scott?
Not yet,
Chicago?
but we have to figure out how to be in Chicago for one of your deals. So, but
Yeah,
but the point,
you should play at like ISS.
I would, but
You
the
should play
problem
at the
is
after
my
parties.
band is now making, compared to most bands, we charge anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a gig. So that's the problem.
Oh,
We're
we
not
had
a bar band.
who did we? Mark
Okay.
McGrath, Sublime with Rome.
But
I think
that's
Coolio
the real
last
deal,
year,
though. See, I'm
RIP.
not. I was there. Well, no, you didn't. I was at ISS when Ryan Ed. I don't know if you were involved with that. He had Sublime and who
Yeah,
he had. Yeah. That was a great show.
Yeah,
What a stage!
Mark McGrath
What a stage!
and then
What a stage!
Coolio.
Yeah. See, I'm playing on
Yeah.
stages like that now, and you know. But the point is, because I'm a marketer, most bands would not go from zero to where I'm at, including having a pandemic in the middle. We went from being a local bar band to now we have lasers, lights, smoke, big circle screen like Floyd. We have the whole stage show. I got a huge trailer with all the gear that we go to.
Scott goes
But
0
it's
to 100.
they're lucky to have a guy like me. It's my
That's you.
band, but they're
Yeah,
lucky
exactly.
because most bands are going, well, I made $100 tonight at the local bar, you know, and so it's funny that the band has become my
Gunslinger.
outlet.
That's the word I was looking for from the
Gunslinger.
Wild West. That is Scott
Gunslinger.
Fresner, the Gunslinger,
Gunslinger, there you
2003 to
go.
2008.
Scott,
Yeah,
if you were to look into the industry, where is it? Okay, so you obviously have seen it. Now you're kind of sitting back and watching it a little bit. If we were to write it down today, where is it going 3-4 years from now?
We're taking our bets.
Yeah,
I
place
don't
your
know
bets.
because I thought when I was doing the T-Jet, I was going to kill screening. I mean, I really did think that screening was dead. Nobody wants to do separations. My separation business was dead. My film business would be dead. I was going to kill it all. I was convinced of that. But now I see, 18 years later, 12 years later, nothing has changed. But I do think if you look at the shows now, you guys were probably at Printing United, which I thought was a bust, for T-shirt guys, for me.
Yeah,
but I
couldn't make
you got
that
Oval
one.
Jet, you got Digital Squeegee, you've got all these guys doing inkjetting, and I think it's picking up. Brothers got a bigger machine, Epson keeps bringing out a bigger machine. I think that'll erode it, but I'm not sure where it'll be because screen printing seems to not want to go away. I think people are, you're a screener,
What's old is new.
Yeah,
I guess,
what's old is new. I think, when you look at DTF, it's still an inkjet printer just flipped around with powder adhesive on film. It's not like it's the text that much different, right?
No, that's what
orientation
confuses
of
me.
it.
That's what confuses me. Why I don't see people banging on it as much as they did with DTG as far as head clogs and stuff like that. It's the same technology.
I think what we'll say is it works on any. Transfers work on any fabric, right? So they work on polys, and there's no pre-treat, and the ability to print a digital transfer now, like Supacolor. They have in the last 5 years. I can't wait to talk to Rum in 5 years and see if he crushed it or I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you look at guys like Supacolor who came out of I shouldn't say nowhere, but those guys are like they're like on top of the game right now, So it's amazing. Hang on, don't go away. Because I'm a little new to DTF, I got a shirt sample at Printing United. This is a DTF from Equipment Zone. Nice print, but it's still, to me, being old school, it still has such a transfer feel. It just it's so everything you said, no pre-treat, full color, but it feels like a step back because I when I was a printer, how many times have I said I was the biggest guy? Pardon me. When I was a printer, I was making transfers, and we were selling transfers around the country, and so it feels to me being a transfer guy when I was a screen printer. It seems like a step back, but that's just me. Maybe the market doesn't care. You're doing DTF, aren't you?
We do DTF for a specific reason to do nameplates on the back of shirts for college athletes around the country, and so we don't have to cut vinyl or weed or anything like that.
Yeah.
And we don't take inventory risks and anything like that. And for our market, it serves its purpose, right? And I think that's where what does the customer bear? For touring musicians, it's much different. I was talking to the CEO of Printful yesterday, and they were talking about this, the accounts that they have that are massive brands, and I was kind of like, is DTG I was kind of knocking DTG, and they're like the market's bear is much different than perhaps it was. But I think there's still something to the purist, the screen printer, the night owls out there.
Yeah, that's probably where I feel like maybe the boat has sailed. I don't like this, and I think you would probably not have this be your business where there's not a soft feel.
Yeah, it feels a little bulletproof. Yeah, bulletproof for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know.
But Scott, we're gonna have to do a part 2 because I think at some point, Bruce, because I've learned a ton today. No, this is
Scott. Are you going to be at Long Beach too?
I'm going to go for a day. I'm not speaking, and I have my band. Yeah. My band was my new outlet, But so I didn't even fill out the form this year. I decided I'm not going to fill. So I'm going to go for a day. Is the point? I'm going to fly over. I'll be there all day.
If you go with no obligations, you can do whatever you want, right?
I just show up.
I think some of my it's really fascinating to listen to you. To listen to when Charlie talks or Rich and just the amount of life that you all have been through and business. When you say 2008, I got my license then. I was in high school. So we have, Bruce was just in college. So we have, it allows us to appreciate what y'all have done. 100%. But some of these videos, some of these have actually been our best viewed and best listened to. So maybe we need to do more of these. These are fantastic, and we
I'd be
appreciate
happy.
it.
I have a list of people that crossed my path that are now well known in the industry. That if it wasn't for Scott Fresener,
you made a bunch of brand names, and then you made a bunch of brand names, and then you gave them the first names, and I was like, we need to. Coldesi's a person.
Yeah,
we need them.
Even Workhorse. You guys know the guys at Workhorse. They've been around for a while.
Well, notice Scott also said Riley Hopkins. He said Riley.
just brought up Riley,
Listen,
Stalls,
I remember
Coldesi.
Yeah, I was
like,
texting Riley, and then he,
I remember in 1979, I'm at a trade show in Florida, SGIA, and I need a printing press for my school because my wife and I started our school. And, I go down and there's a guy with long hair. Riley had long hair one time, and I didn't know Riley, but I told him that I had a school, had a book, and I need a press. And Riley goes, where do we send it to? It was that simple. And so Riley and I became really good friends. I saw Riley at the ISS show when the Sublime was there at that concert. I think Ryanette flew Riley in because Riley is he's not very internet savvy, but Riley became a very good personal friend, And, by the way, I know you got to go. I think that the average person doesn't know who Riley Hopkins is. They got the Riley press, but they probably don't know. I'm not sure if maybe Ryanette has anything on their website about Riley. But here they're buying a Riley press and a Riley dryer. They have no idea who Riley Hopkins is. And I think it's a crime. I think he's the guy you need to get on your show, but you're going to have to get his wife Val to get him on the computer. But he would be a great interview because here's a guy who back then you had either a Hopkins or a Vastex or a Richardson. You had three presses back in 1978, 79. There was only three brands out there that you would buy. So
let's do it. Wait, Scott, how do people get in touch with you?
Scott at tbiznetwork.com or Scott at shineonfloyd.com.
I love the plug.
If you need a Pink
Don't
Floyd
stop it.
cover band, they're not cheap though,
If
but
you need
they're really good.
If you need a cover band.
Yeah, but we're really good.
No,
Scott,
this is fantastic.
Thank you for the time, for the stories, for the honesty. Thanks for being a Wild West sharpshooter.
Gunslinger.
Gunslinger.
There we go.
Bruce, you've done Bruce, you've done well. You came out of nowhere, I think, and look at you now.
Don't let it get to his head. Don't let it get to his head.
No, I think there's. You see the space. I think it has still a lot of really neat opportunities. So.
Oh, it does for sure.
This is cool.
And
reach out to Scott. Say hi at Long Beach. Appreciate the stories. Thanks, guys, for listening to Printavo Producers Podcast. Bruce from Printavo, Stephen Farag at Campus Inc. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for listening. We'll see you in the next one.